What's up, alligators? Ready to gnaw on some more information and attack those who reject it? Then you've come to the right place. Eduardo Mendez, among several others, have asked me whether or not we as Catholics could marry someone who was not Catholic. And I have to tell you, while it is permissible by the church, it will not be as easy as ABC, easy as 1, 2, 3, simple as do, re, mi, ABC, 1, 2, 3, you and me. This permission to marry is not a no strings attached marriage. There are definitely going to be obstacles between these two people who are coming from two separate religious foundations. I was in love with a Protestant and ready to marry him, but he was the one who didn't want to marry me because he didn't want to discourage any part of my Catholic faith. We would have amazing conversations about the Catholic faith. He would ask questions, I would answer. He would say why he disagreed. It was an ongoing thing that really strengthened our relationship because so many conversations were faith-based, but at the end of the day, we were still in disagreement about what the church truly wanted us to believe and how the church wanted us to act. He was actually the one who encouraged me to start this video blog in the first place, the true sign of respect for somebody's faith. When I was trying to date him, my dad kept saying stuff like, "Don't you want to marry somebody who's on the same level as you in regard to natural family planning? Or what about raising your children in the church?" Catholic doctrine stipulates that if we marry someone outside of the Catholic faith, that they must agree to raise the children in the Catholic Church. The guy I wanted to marry stated that he didn't want our children to have to choose one or the other. That conviction on his part showed the amount of love he was willing to give to his children to not put them in an awkward situation of, do I choose mom or dad? Just something to consider. Natural family planning too is no joke. My husband and I had to put off having children so we could not consummate our marriage on our wedding night. If I had married the Protestant, I can guarantee he would have flipped out, insisted we used a condom, anything to be able to let us consummate the marriage without risking having a child at that time. I recall him stating that he wanted to be married for 5 years before he wanted to have children, which was way too long in my eyes. Heck, a year was too long. Especially if you're looking to marry somebody who is very rooted and grounded in their faith, such as my guy who was a youth minister at a Protestant church. It can be difficult. Yes, one of the goals inside of this type of marriage is that the grace we emulate and how we act around this person is to hopefully lead to their eventual conversion. Don't date a project. Dating someone hoping that they're going to one day change their mind and become Catholic is not healthy. We're called to accept and love our spouse exactly where they are. Especially in the whole wives submit to your husbands type of way. There was a level that I think I knew deep down I probably would have ended up compromising my faith because I would have wanted to submit to him as my husband and support him in all of his endeavors that he was doing. And while I was convinced that we could have made it work, he was definitely on the side of, you need to marry a Catholic and I need to marry someone who's in the Reformed Church. Now I'm married and he's still single. I am the champion, my friend. Oh, it's so mean. But in all seriousness, if you're patient and pray to God for the right person to come along, whether it takes 5 months or 5 years, God will reward that patience and discernment in your life. One of the conversations in particular going on in the comments is between a Catholic falling in love with an Islamic woman. In those types of situations where somebody is super passionate about their faith and encouraging the relationship, it can lead to them trying to convert us from our faith, which is another thing we have to guard fully against. Ask questions and try to understand why each religion believes what they believe, but then go back to a priest and ask the specific questions that they argue against within the Catholic faith. At the end of the day, the church has valid reasons within the oral tradition and the doctrine that has been preserved to answer these questions that you're wondering about. I think it's interesting that the Catholic Catechism actually refers to these types of marriages as mixed marriages. When I was in high school, my parents were not okay with me dating somebody of a different race. They essentially stated that when I did, I was attempting to merge two different cultures, and my children would end up being confused and not feeling like they really fit with one or the other. I've talked to several mixed children who do feel this way. That can end up happening for a child from a mixed religions marriage. They're kind of Catholic, but they're kind of Muslim, but maybe they're Protestant, they're kind of Christian. They don't really know where they're coming from. It's important as us for parents to instill that sense of identity into our children. That sense of identity isn't limited to gender identity or helping them figure out what they're going to be when they grow up, but their inherent identity as a child of God. In a mixed marriage of Catholic and Protestant, that is 100% possible. However, there will be those challenges that will arise that wouldn't have otherwise been there if you had married another Catholic. I think I was the one who was the most upset on the wedding night when we couldn't have sex. But I got over it and respected the fact that my husband was upholding what we had been taught within what natural family planning looked like in the Catholic context. Not to mention, I can simply state, this is what the doctrine says, and he goes, okay, instead of trying to argue against it. So while I would strongly encourage you to marry somebody from your own faith, having a mixed marriage, as long as it's done within the Catholic faith, is totally permissible. And this could be an everlasting love. This could be the one you've waited for. Make sure you're on the same page and agree to be married by a Catholic priest, and you will be A-OK in the eyes of the church. So not on that. We'll see you later, alligators. These are rough chords, guys. B flat, G minor, C minor. Why is it so hard?